tuned into the Sportscast with Brian, Craig, and Jeff. Give you all the sports news you need. We give you outspoken thoughts about all the headlines. We talk baseball, football, hockey, and more. No matter the topic, we cover it. Get ready for the show and keep it outspoken. Keep it outspoken. We keep it outspoken only on the Sportscast. Tune into the Sportscast with Brian, Craig, and Jeff. Give you all the sports news you need.
Good evening and welcome into the Outspoken Network Sportscast Edition, episode 195, Headlines of the Week. We're going to cover an NBA cover-up tonight, possible team tank, an MLB, possible like a Malice at the Palace, their version of it. We got a couple big stars coming back from injury. NFL hostage situation, day 6,000. A possible shocking retirement in the NFL. And an NHL hat trick and much more straight after this. All right, welcome back. Episode 195, creeping in on 200. My name is Craig. I'm the host for this evening. Brian and Jeff are out again this week. We're going to jump right into the NBA with a pretty shocking college-like story out of the NBA. It seems like the Memphis Police Department is being reported in this case against Ja Morant are being accused of hiding evidence and conspiring to protect Morant. It's like they're just not looking at all the evidence and not going back and following up with witnesses. And, we tried to call them and they're not here, so we're just going to let it go. Just so he can play in the playoffs and hopefully continue Memphis's run at a championship because it's playoff time. Now, whether or not they'll refine the evidence after the playoffs is still to come. But this is like your Baylor college football sweep it under the rug scandal that you never hear with a police department against a pro athlete and a pro team. Like they're just making things go away so Morant can continue to play. It'll be something to keep an eye on if something develops in the playoffs and they have to suspend him mid-playoff run, or if something comes out right as the playoffs start. It'll be very interesting to see if that happens with Morant. This guy has had nothing but attention drawn to him all season with 2 or 3 separate gun incidents and just attention for the wrong reasons, getting in fights with fans, with people in the crowd, his dad getting involved. It's just been a mess in Memphis all season with Morant. And he's a really solid basketball player, but he's acting as if he wants to be, he's getting attention for the wrong reasons when he should just play basketball and he'd have plenty of attention. So it is what it is. In Memphis, we will see how long Morant is able to stay on the court and if the Memphis Police Department is really helping him do that. On to the team tankathon over here. The Dallas Mavericks still mathematically have a shot at the play-in, at the 10 seed. Right now, they are, if they were to lose both games, they would be the 10th overall selection. Maybe it doesn't sound important or doesn't sound like it's a big deal, but the Mavericks traded Kristaps Porzingis, and when they did, they traded a first-round pick to the New York Knicks. Well, that pick is protected in the top 10. So it appears they're sitting 5 guys tonight when they go in to play Chicago. And that's questioning. You still have a chance to make the play-in game if you win both of these games and Oklahoma City loses to Memphis on Sunday. Well, that's both doable. You can beat the Bulls and you can beat the Spurs. Those are both teams that are very beatable if you play your team. But Kyrie Irving's going to sit. The center's going to sit. Like 5 different guys are going to sit for really no reason. Hardaway's going to sit. Like Luka says he's going to play as long as they mathematically can go into the play-in game. Which if they lose against Chicago, chances are that's not going to happen. This is interesting to me. This is all Cuban trying to master a plan. He thinks Kyrie is going to automatically resign. How this team got better with Kyrie Irving, or should have gotten better with Kyrie Irving, and went from what should have been an easy walk into the playoffs as the 5 or 6 seed, and has now dropped to the 10 or the 11 trying to fight for the 10, is mind-blowing to me. You got Kyrie Irving and got worse. And it wasn't because of Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving has been nothing but solid. There's been no problems on the court. There's been no problems off the court. Kyrie has been quiet. You've heard nothing from him. Anytime he's heard the fans, he's acted in the right manner. He made a comment about the fans a couple weeks ago that they weren't the ones playing, probably shouldn't be booing. That's just NBA guys that don't like crowd getting on them. This is very confusing in Dallas. Jason Kidd is making moves that don't make sense. I didn't like the center they got from Houston. I didn't like when they picked him up, and people are complaining about his minutes. Well, his minutes are restricted. I didn't like because he's defensively he's a liability, and so people go into the net, they go into the paint, and he draws fouls. He gets in foul trouble. He can't play the second half. He's not getting a lot of rebounds. He's not getting a lot of points. He just hasn't been what the Mavericks thought they were going to get. Luka's been hurt. Kyrie's now supposedly got an ankle that he's rehabbing. I don't believe that's the case. I believe the NBA is probably going to look into this because here are your 2 biggest stars that you might lose and not make the playoffs. Do the NBA want the Mavericks in the playoffs? It's pretty clear that they do. Luka gets suspended or should have gotten suspended for the 14th technically got last week, and the NBA rescinded it, and there was no reason to rescind it. He clearly went after the ref and threw his hands up and made a big deal about a call that should not have been made. And the NBA wanting the Mavericks to make the playoffs and wanting their superstars to be on national television rescinded the technical and allowed Luka to continue to play. And he's got to be careful tonight because if he gets one in Chicago, he can't play against San Antonio on Sunday. It'll be very interesting to see if Luka will be enough to beat the Bulls or if the Mavs lay down and try to keep their draft pick. I'm not sure why they want to keep the draft pick because they don't use those. They don't do well in the draft. Cuban, this Nico Harrison, they haven't been big in the draft. They haven't. Hell, their best draft pick was probably traded away several years ago because he couldn't play with Luka. Here's a guy they said couldn't play, and now he's over there beating them with the Charlotte Hornets twice. So it's very interesting to see what the Mavericks are doing here. I think if they don't make the playoffs, that Jason Kidd's on his way out the door. Other people here locally think that he's not, thinks that he's safe. Cuban seems to make it seem like he's safe, but I just, to me, I cannot see a team with this much talent and Christian Wood and Kyrie, obtaining Kyrie and Luka and, all these guys they've got, they just should be the 5. They should have walked into the 4 or 5 seed and were there 2 weeks ago. And they are something like 9-26 with Kyrie. I mean, it's just insane at what they're doing with 2 NBA superstars who supposedly want to play together and don't have. Luka has no problem with Kyrie. Kyrie has no problem with Luka. Luka's got some kind of personal stuff that's going on. Nobody can put their finger on what that is. He just kind of has lost the love of basketball all of a sudden, right at playoff time. That's really not a good time to happen. So we will be interested to see what the Mavericks do tonight and if Sunday matters or if Sunday doesn't matter. Sunday could also be Greg Popovich's last game. So that's interesting. The Spurs may rally and want to beat the Mavericks and send Pop off on a high note. And we kept the Mavericks from the playoffs. What better way to send Pop off if it's really his last game? It hasn't been announced by San Antonio. It's just kind of been talked about around the league that this may be his last game. And if it is, then what better way to send Pop off into the sunset? He just makes the Hall of Fame and then send him off by beating your arch rival Dallas Mavericks and costing him a playoff spot. Maybe that's what they want. Maybe it's not. But I think Greg Popovich would probably love to make sure that they don't make the play-in on their watch. So another story that's super interesting that I saw this afternoon, Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz in the offseason is going to go serve in the Finland armed military as his obligation as a Finland citizen. The males are obligated to serve in the military for at least a certain amount of time. And so he is going to go in and do his military service during the off season. And this is something that you just don't hear of. Pat Tillman did it in the NFL, put an NFL career on hold and put millions of dollars on hold and went and became, a Ranger and was killed in the line of duty. And, I don't think Lauri Markkanen is going to be putting himself in harm's way to the fact that Pat Tillman did. But it's just interesting to see that this guy is going to go and in the offseason, he's going to go fight for his country and go put himself in the military and fulfill his commitment to the Finland military in the offseason. So I thought that was super interesting and something to keep an eye on in the NBA offseason is whether Lauri Markkanen comes back to the Utah Jazz or whether or not he stays over there, whether he likes the military life and likes what he's doing over there and continues to stay and ends up serving for years to come and the Jazz lose Markkanen. So it'll be interesting to see what that comes. Sunday's the end of the regular season. You got some interesting things in the West. East is pretty well wrapped up. So it'll be interesting to see come Easter Sunday whether the Mavs or Oklahoma make the playoffs here on that last play-in deal. Whoever makes the 10 seed is going to have to win 2 road games to make it into the real playoffs. But and one of those games will be against the Lakers. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of the NBA playoffs as the season winds down on Sunday. Okay, on to Major League Baseball. had a somewhat of a malice at the palace situation opening weekend. The Angels were playing the A's, and Anthony Rendon reaches into the stands and grabs a fan and pulls him into the dugout almost. And there was an interaction between Rendon and the fan. Rendon claims that the fan called him a derogatory name, which we will not repeat on the podcast. But he grabs him. Clearly, there's a video of him grabbing him and pulling him over the bar of the dugout and telling him, "You called me a name. You said something to me. You said something to me." And the fan's like, "No, no, no!" And his buddy's grabbing him, pulling him back, and the Angels are grabbing Rendon. Um, I understand that fans. I've never been one to go into a major league ballpark or an NBA or a hockey arena or any arena or pro sport and absolutely blast these guys that are playing. There's no heckling, screaming at them, cussing at them, throwing things at them. You've seen water bottles fly at NBA guys. You've seen beers fly at players. To me, it's just not something that you should do. But on the flip side of that, under any circumstance, can a major league athlete, a pro athlete, go into the stands and take matters into their own hands? They have security there for a reason. Rendon needed to go into the dugout and get the officer that's working in the dugout and go, "Hey, that guy needs to go. He's calling me names. I don't want him here. He's got to go." And at that point in time, law enforcement handles it. But to grab the guy and pull him into the dugout and go into the stands, basically, and touch a fan, eventually you're going to see nets all the way around. NBA is the same way. The other night, the Mavs were leaving the court, and some guy touched Luka's shoulder, and he turned around and he didn't go at him. But this happens too often in college sports this year. There was a guy, a fan, a player set his helmet on the bench, and some fan reaches over. He was close enough, reaches over and grabs the helmet and puts it on and runs up the stands. And you see the college football player go up into the stands. Luckily, he didn't do anything. Luckily, teammates and coaches stopped him before he was able to do anything. But these situations are happening more and more often where either somebody's heckling a player and he goes after him or touches them or throws something at him or takes something of theirs. It's just super interesting that this continues to happen, and it has to have stopped, because if it doesn't, we're going to have an absolute another one of the malice at the palace situations where there's fans and athletes throwing hands and getting in a huge fight, and it's just not something that any pro sport wants. It's not a good look. It's not something that we need to have. Fans need to stay to themselves. Players need to stay to themselves. I get Rendon's side of it. You are in a slump or are not hitting well. It's opening weekend. The guy looked like an A's fan. Not really sure what the problem he had with Rendon, whether maybe he used to be a Washington National fan and he's mad because, Rendon left. Rendon hasn't had the greatest start in Anaheim. He's been hurt. He hasn't produced real well. He hasn't played up to the contract, just like anybody else who the Angels have paid that hasn't paid up to the contract, not named Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes of if there's any more, just a 5-game suspension for Rendon, or whether or not they do more and put nets up or make fans back up or something to that effect. Jeff said he's moving into his new apartment, so he will be back next week. Hope the move goes well, bud, and let us know if you need anything. And we will see you back next week. But it's interesting to see what Major League Baseball's reaction is going to be on this situation, on whether or not they do anything further with fans and autographs or in-game interaction to prevent this type of situation from happening again. First time I've really ever seen it in baseball. Normally, you see guys go over the wall and fans catch them or whatever. You never really see any kind of melee or argument or guys that are grabbing people or anything like that. And like I said, I don't know if he clearly wasn't justified, whether or not he heard something or whether it was a real deal. Either way, you have to let law enforcement at that point in time be the one to handle it, because you just can't take it in your own hands. You're going to lose a bunch of money. You're going to lose games, and the Angels don't need to be losing superstars any more than they already do. On that note, the Angels also put out Shohei Ohtani as this guy is just a freak, an absolute freak of nature. It came out this week that sometime this season, Shohei Ohtani intends to be able to throw left-handed to certain batters, change midstream. The only thing they're waiting on is a special-made glove with an extra, like 6 finger holes or whatever, to where he can, once he throws the ball, he could switch it quickly and get it on his hand and be able to field the position, kind of a la Jim Abbott years ago when Abbott didn't have a hand. Well, Ohtani's wanting something with more room in it, more finger holes in it, to make it easier for him to stick his hand in there quickly and shift. So at some point in time this year, keep an eye on Shohei Ohtani pitching both right-handed and left-handed during the course of a baseball game in situations where guys don't hit as well off left-handed pitching or something like that. And Shohei becoming more of a nightmare than he already is. Here's a guy who pitches 8 innings, 9 innings games, plays 9 innings game, hits missiles off the bat, and now he wants to add, I'm going to pitch left-handed while I'm at it. The guy is just a absolute freak of nature, and he's going to back up a Brinks truck next year in the free agent market. I have no idea where he's going to go. Probably LA, because that's where everybody goes. Hopefully he comes down the coast a little bit and goes to San Francisco, and maybe we can sign a free agent that doesn't go back to their original team or a different team after agreeing to the contract. Two major injury updates in MLB. Bryce Harper has not been put on the 60-day DL. Bryce Harper at the end of last season after the World Series, come to find out, needed Tommy John surgery. Well, that's 160 games out, do not pass go, don't collect $200. Well, he has decided, and the Phillies have decided, they're not going to put him on the 60-day DL because he possibly could hit and DH. Now that the National League has a DH, Bryce Harper can DH and not have to play the field. This is great news for the Phillies because they already lost Rhys Hoskins with a torn ACL, big bat. They think Bryce is going to be out all year, and they get news that he can play. The only thing you worry about here is Harper's going to have to be super careful and not kamikaze into second base and head first dive and get into a bunch of rundowns and put any kind of stress on that elbow. He can't bang it. He can't fall. He needs to avoid collisions of any kind. Anything jarring to that elbow, he's going to have to wear a huge protector on that elbow that to make sure that doesn't get hit, because as a left-handed hitter, that right elbow that I believe it's his throwing hand, and that elbow is going to be up front. So if he takes a pitch and it blasts that elbow, that could undo all that Tommy John surgery if he slides wrong. So he's going to have to be very careful, extremely careful, to not put any kind of jam it into a base or anything to that effect. While the Phillies need him, they had off to a 1-5 start. They're not doing so great. Granted, early 162 games, they can turn it around in a heartbeat. But Bryce Harper is absolutely a key to that organization. But isn't worth the risk of losing all of next year if he goes and blows out that elbow and they have to redo the Tommy John surgery. It may be career ending if that happens. I've never seen anybody, back to back go in and redo those ligaments right away. The other interesting story is out of Chicago from the White Sox. And this to me is super impressive. Liam Hendriks in the offseason was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is cancer. And he had to have chemotherapy and radiation and has gone through that. And just the other day, rang the bell for his final chemo treatment. And in an interview, the White Sox GM said, there's a reason we haven't put him on the 60-day DL. We believe, with the information we're getting, that Liam Hendriks could see the mound before the first 2 months of the season. That story in itself would be a miracle. Even if he goes out there and just gets lit up like the 4th of July, the fact that you went in and had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in December or January and went through, fought it, chemo, radiation, everything that you had to go through, and now you ring the bell in April, and now you're going to go start your rehab and start throwing and doing bullpens and working your arm strength back up, and that they could possibly see him before the All-Star break would be absolutely incredible. And not a White Sox fan, but I would root for Liam Hendriks to make this recovery, get back on the mound, and have a successful season and not miss as much time as they thought he was going to miss. Nobody likes cancer. Nobody wants to see that. And so to see somebody beat it and to see somebody come back and be able to do their task and help their team and get back into the game they love, man, spot on. Spot on to you, Liam Hendriks, for putting in the work and going through the treatments that weren't easy. I'm sure there's a lot of hard days with that. Nobody wants to see that. And I hope Liam Hendriks comes back with a bang for the White Sox and goes and finishes, and does a lot of good things for them this season. And that's about it for Major League Baseball. Still too early in the season to go over, divisions and stuff. Tampa's off to another amazing start. This guy, Kevin Cash, working with the Band of Misfit Toys, off to 6-0 with the lowest payroll in baseball. Again, that guy should be manager of the year every year until eternity because he just keeps doing everything with next to nothing. And while he hasn't really won a title, he just wins 95 games every year and makes playoffs and has 600 people watching him. They have no fans. The team needs to be relocated to I don't know, put them in Vegas, put them somewhere, put them in Montreal. The fans in Tampa say they love him, but they don't show through the gate to go put out, even a playoff game. There's empty seats in Tampa, so it's a weird deal. Okay, on to the NFL, who normally is king, but it's the off season, so we're going to back it down a little bit. NFL hostage situation, day 6,000, Aaron Rodgers holding the Green Bay Packers hostage at bay again after 17 years of promising us he would not do this. Another story has come out that says that the San Francisco 49ers have now come out and maybe putting their dog in the fight for Aaron Rodgers to try to steal him from the New York Jets. What we've been told is that the trade agreement, the Jets want him, the Packers don't. We're going to send him to New York, but they want a first-round pick. New York's like, I don't think we're going to do that. Our first-round pick is 13. We're not going to give you number 13 for a guy who might quit on us middle of the year, might quit on us after 1 year. Like, we need a promise from Aaron that he's going to play for more than 5 minutes over here in New York to justify giving up the 13th pick. That's a solid NFL football player at 13. That makes no sense to us. San Francisco has talked about 2 threes from this year and a 1 from next year. The 1 from next year probably doesn't make any sense if they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what they need 14 quarterbacks for, but I would think that if Brock Purdy and Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo can win football games in San Francisco, that probably a guy who's won multiple MVPs could win games in San Francisco as well. Problem with that is, do you want cray Aaron Rodgers and his weed or whatever off-brand deal that he's taken in San Francisco, where everything becomes legal and you can just do whatever you want? Seems awful weird to me. The 49ers would just be the rich keep getting richer if they were able to steal Aaron Rodgers away. I don't want him in the NFC. I don't see the 49ers keeping him in the NFC. That's why they were going to play, send him to the AFC, because they already played that division. They don't have to see him for a couple years. And so they could maybe hope that he retires before they ever have to play against him. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. The draft is coming. They're going to have to make this before the draft, or else it doesn't make any sense to trade a first-round pick that we're not going to use. So keep an eye on draft night. Keep an eye on Aaron Rodgers holding the Green Bay Packers hostage for 8 million days. I love it. Brian is just absolutely losing his mind because he doesn't want Rodgers. He's burning the jerseys. He's wanting rid of him. He wants the cap relief. He wants all the things that come with Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers will not give it to him. I love every minute of the dysfunction in Green Bay. Okay, so the news came out this week of a super surprise retirement. In an interview, Tyreek Hill has said, come the 2025 season, when my contract is over with Miami, I'm out. And the player that likes to give the peace sign is giving the peace sign to the NFL, supposedly, to go do something else. He wants to get into the business side, he says. Well, you would think maybe that means like a GM or a coach or a, player personnel or something to that effect. No, Tyreek Hill wants to play video games. And he wants to go into business in the video game industry and try to cash in on the market of esports and probably gambling and probably all this. And so he has said after 2025, he will be out. That would be a huge loss for the Miami Dolphins. At least he's going to finish the contract and hasn't said, I'm just going to run out on that. But to me, that is super interesting, to say the least, that Tyreek Hill, who's young, only been in the league since, I think, 2016 or 2017. So he's only been in the league 5 years. And he's going to walk out and say, I'm going to take all my money and I'm going to go into the video game world. And I'm going to not play football anymore because I just don't like it. Or I just like video games better. That, to me, was very surprising to read that. I thought when I read it that it was just clickbait. And there's no way that Tyreek Hill was ever retiring, or he said he was going to retire in 15 years, and we were just using the highlight to get people to click on it. But come to find out, after 2025, which is only next year, Tyreek Hill says he's walking away. I will believe that when Tyreek Hill files the paperwork with the NFL and doesn't suit up for the Miami Dolphins or whoever would give him the paycheck. In another interesting story, the Lamar saga continues over in Baltimore, and it seems to be like there is a report that the Baltimore Ravens went hard at Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield said, no, hard pass. You guys don't have any wide receivers. We'll go over here and play in Tampa that has all the wide receivers. And so he denied. He said, no, I don't want to play for Baltimore. But supposedly they made a very valiant effort at Baker Mayfield, which tells me he wasn't going to be the backup with the money they're talking about they were throwing at him. That was absolutely, they wanted Baker Mayfield to be the starter. And so Harbaugh is standing here with egg on his face when he's standing here and at the winter, at the GM meetings going, oh, Lamar's our guy. I have full faith Lamar will be back and he's our quarterback. And I just want the regular Lamar left back. And then come to find out, meanwhile, y'all were trying to throw money bags over at Baker Mayfield to be your quarterback. And Baker was the one that was like, nah, that's not going to work. You guys have nobody for me to throw the ball to. Your team is broken. I don't want to play for you. But the fact that they're going behind Lamar's back, maybe that's why he wants to leave Baltimore. It's because we're not, negotiating with any kind of, goodwill or gentleman's agreement or anything like that. And I'm assuming if they would have signed Baker Mayfield, they would have rescinded the tag that they have on Lamar and let him become a free agent and let him walk. But Baker just said, no, I'm good. I'm going to go down here and play in Tampa and take over for the GOAT and build my legacy with the best wide receivers in the game. Interesting. I think it's a better fit in Tampa than it would have been in Baltimore. I don't think he'd had any kind of success in Baltimore. Not sure he's going to have any success in Tampa, but he's definitely not going to have any up in Baltimore. They don't have anybody to throw the ball to. That's part of Lamar's problem, even though he can't really throw anyway. But that's why he has to run the ball 900 times a season, because he's running for his life and drawing up run plays because they don't have anybody to throw the ball to. They got rid of his best receiver. It's an absolute dumpster fire up in Baltimore. All right, so now we're going to go on. I was supposed to do this as a separate segment, and the world has just been super busy, and I haven't been able to do it as much as I would have liked. Basically, the season has passed us by, and I've only done it a couple times. But we are going to cover the NHL and Craig's hockey hat trick. All right, the NHL is wrapping up. There's 4 games left to the regular season, and basically most of your playoff seeds or playoff teams are decided. Seeding is still yet to be determined. Dallas can win the West. There are a few games. They're about 5 points behind Vegas. They play Vegas tomorrow. That will be interesting to see if they can stay hot. They're on a 2-game winning streak. The offense has been pretty potent in Dallas. We will see how that goes. Colorado just was dealt a huge blow. Them and Dallas are tied right now with 100 points apiece. Colorado loses Cale Makar and Darren Helm for an unknown amount of time with both lower body injuries. This is the second stint that Makar has had to miss with a lower body injury, and that's why I believe Colorado hasn't run away with that division and wrapped it up. They've struggled all year because they've had several injuries with McKinnon and Makar, and their big name guys, Helm, going down. That's a huge loss for Colorado. They were able to win the other night and keep pace with Dallas, but it'll be interesting to see down the stretch the last 4 games and into the playoffs if Makar and Helm can't come back. It will be very interesting to see. Colorado will probably not be long for the playoff world if they don't have those two guys in their lineup through the playoffs. Jason Robertson has had a phenomenal year. I love this kid. He is Dallas's best player, by far, and he showed it. He's precedent on 40 goals. He is the first person in Dallas Stars history, and I believe that goes back to their time in Minnesota, to have more than 94 points in a season. He has now last night scored twice and gone over the 100 point. He's got 102, I believe, on the season. And while it should have been an MVP season, the guy in Edmonton is just having, 176 points. He's having a year like Wayne Gretzky. And that guy is just the best player in hockey by far. It just, Connor McDavid is just the best player in hockey by far. He's got 148 points. He's clear of everybody by 20. Robertson's not even in the top 3. He's got over 100, and the third guy is Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning at 108, and the guy from Edmonton, Razatili, has 123. So he's going to get no love for the MVP. They're not going to get. They should have had Rookie of the Year and the kid from in Wyatt Johnson. The kid from Seattle is going to come in, and Wyatt's not even going to get a vote on that. So while the Stars are having a very good season, and thank God that the playoff overtime is 5-on-5 and not 3-on-3, because Dallas might make some noise. In the Western Conference, everybody's set. There's one wild card left. Calgary and Winnipeg are tied with 4 to go. And if you're the Dallas Stars fans, you do not want to see the Calgary Flames in the playoffs, because that is like Superman's kryptonite for the Dallas Stars. The Calgary Flames ownage is ownage, and they will march right in and probably end the Stars season in a very big hurry if they have to play them. So I'm hoping Calgary doesn't make it, or I'm hoping they make it and go to a different, don't match up with Dallas in the first round, so somebody else can deal with that buzzsaw, because as a Dallas fan, I do not want to see that. So the Western Conference is pretty simple. It's either going to be Calgary or Winnipeg, and then the other, the Seattle Kraken have already clinched in their second season as an expansion team. Kudos to them. You don't see that very often. Happened in Vegas. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals. Hope that doesn't happen. But congratulations to Seattle being their second year, and they're in the playoffs already. Now, the Eastern Conference, that's a little bit different. Florida Panthers and the Islanders are tied at 89 points. Pittsburgh's 1 back at 88 points, and then Buffalo's 6 back at 83. Don't think Buffalo's going to make it. 6 points with 4 games to go would need a lot of help. A lot of help. Like, I have to win all 4 games, and everybody above me has to not even get overtime points. They just need none to even hopefully have a chance, but mathematically still not eliminated. But basically, it's a 3-team race for 2 slots. Florida, the Islanders, and Pittsburgh in their 900-year-old roster, and Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, guys that are around back when I was first getting into hockey 20 years ago, are still playing hockey today. We were talking about it a couple weeks ago, and people are like, is Sidney Crosby still playing hockey? I thought that was a misprint. Yeah, so did everybody else. He's had multiple concussions, he's had multiple injuries, and yet this guy is still playing hockey, and not only playing it, but playing it at a super, super high level. Down the stretch, 4 games to go. Once the season concludes, I'll jump on here and we will go over seedings. We'll go over who's playing who in the first round. We'll go round by round, game by game, break it down for you, and pick who I think or we think will be advancing through each round and all the way to when they raise the Stanley Cup. Very, very crazy week, very long week. Had a couple unexpected days off that I didn't see coming with work. So I was able to get some stuff done in the middle of the week that I wasn't normally able to get done. Ready for the weekend. It's Easter. Really no major Easter plans. May spend some time with the family, may not. It just depends on my son and what he has planned. We're going to go from there. Going to go watch the Dallas Stars game tomorrow. That is always fun. Like I said, they're playing Vegas. It'll be a tough game. Hopefully they can pull that out and win one for the playoff seeding. And it is also a bobblehead Miro Heiskanen bobblehead day. So that will be interesting to see if we can score a bobblehead. Maybe we can put him on the podcast next week and put him on the desk, and he can be the backdrop for the hockey hat trick for the rest of the season if we're able to score the Miro Heiskanen bobblehead tomorrow afternoon. Hope everybody has a good weekend. Hope everybody has a good Easter. Hope you were able to enjoy, possibly if you had the day off, for Good Friday. A lot of people did. I did not, but like I said, I had Wednesday and Thursday off, so to work on Good Friday wasn't as different as normal. So it will be interesting to see. Brian and Jeff should both be back next week. Brian had something come up unexpectedly. Jeff's in the middle of his move, so both of those guys should be back on next week. If anything breaks over the course of the week, myself, Brian, Jeff, maybe one of us will come on and do a quick little hot spot, or Brian likes to get on TikTok and post some stuff. He might do that. Keep an eye out. Follow us wherever you download your podcast, the Outspoken Network, the Sportscast Edition, YouTube, all your podcast platforms. You can comment on the show on YouTube Live or Twitch. I believe that comes through as well to the chat. We would love to interact with you and see you log on. Got a couple people logged on right now. We've had some downloads on the apps. I will be coming up and doing a draft show, a pre-draft show, probably, maybe with Brian, maybe his buddy Ryan likes to join him. I'm kind of watching some film and going over the top 100, getting some mock drafts ready. We probably will come out with a mock draft here or there come the middle of the month, towards the end, as the draft draws closer. Want to see what moves are made, if the hostage situation in Green Bay finally gets resolved, or if they're held captive through the draft. But keep an eye out for that. We'll be doing the draft show and covering NFL draft top to bottom, pick by pick. Normally the night of the draft, I log on and go over each pick as it happens, trades live. Wasn't able to do it last year. Didn't have a real internet signal where I was at. But we will go through that and hopefully have a live draft edition on Thursday night on the NFL draft at the end of the month. I think it's the 26th is what it falls on. But we will look forward to that. We have a lot of things coming with the intro videos and graphics, and probably possibly changing formats or websites that we use to make it more user-friendly and more a little bit easier for you guys to find us, you guys to interact with us. We can post some more videos and easier to get things, video clips and things like that added. We could do short things better that go straight to Facebook, straight to TikTok, and everything like that. So we have a lot of things coming. Go and follow us on YouTube or your podcast and the Outspoken Network and the Outspoken Sportscast. We look forward to seeing you throughout the week. coming back with a couple shows a week once the sports start to pick back up. Until then, God bless, and remember, keep it outspoken.